Well, welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. It's snowing in a lot of the country. For some reason or other, here where we live, there's supposed to be snow, but we haven't got any. They've got it in Washington. They're going all up the East Coast, 39 states under various storm watches, but we haven't got it. We'll tell you more about it. Well, I'm sure Donald Trump is licking his chops with glee as another left-winger joins the race in the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders, 77 years old, says he wants to finish, quote, the revolution he started. The socialist standard-bearer jumped into the 2020 presidential race Tuesday. He says his policies are, quote, more popular than ever.
Well, while some in the Democratic field share his vision, others are distancing themselves from his policies. Heather Sells reports.
In a crowded Democratic field, Bernie Sanders has more cash in the bank than any of his competitors. And thanks to his 2016 run, he enjoys serious name recognition. But some are also asking, has his moment passed?
Together, you and I and our 2016 campaign began the political revolution. Now it is time to complete that revolution and implement the vision that we fought for.
Bernie Sanders believes that 2020 will be his moment. The self-proclaimed Democratic socialist is enjoying greater influence in the Democratic Party. Many of his once fringe ideas are now Democratic mainstream. At least one candidate is adding her own twist. On Monday, Elizabeth Warren announced a plan for universal child care at a cost of $70 billion a year to be funded by taxing the wealthiest Americans.
You may recall that in 2016, many of the ideas that I talked about, Medicare for all, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, making public colleges and universities tuition free, all of those ideas, people will say, oh, Bernie, they're so radical, they are extreme. The American people just won't accept those ideas. Well, you know what's happened in over 3 years? All of those ideas and many more are now part of the political mainstream.
But some Democrats are keeping their distance. Amy Klobuchar has rejected free tuition, and Kamala Harris makes the point she's not a socialist.
I was a magic genie and could give that to everyone and we could afford it, I would.
Well, I'm not a democratic socialist. I believe that capitalism has great strengths when it works for all people equally well.
On Tuesday, a Trump campaign spokeswoman predicted that Americans will reject, quote, an agenda of sky-high tax rates, government-run health care, and coddling dictators like those in Venezuela. The president himself said that Sanders has no chance.
Oh, Bernie Sanders is running, yeah, that's right. Personally, I think he missed his time.
But polls show that of the current Democratic candidates, Sanders is the strongest, unless Joe Biden enters the race. And those close to the former vice president say he is still considering a run. Heather Sells, CBN News.
You know, isn't it amazing the Democrats are bringing forth a field of, quote, old white guys. They talk about they're the party of the masses. And here this old guy is 77 years old. Joe Biden is about the same. Elizabeth Warren is, what is she, 68 or something, 50? I don't know, she's older. And how about the young people? They're supposed to be the core of that party. And it's just amazing what they've got. But I don't think America's going to go for socialism, but the trouble is the young people don't understand it. They haven't been taught, and what they've been taught in the schools is wrong. The colleges that they want to give free tuition to are just, instead of being a bulwark of democracy, they're a bulwark of socialism and communism. And they teach things that undermine the heroes of America. It's horrible. I mean, our college system is rotten at the core, and the public school system is rotten at the core. And it's just a shame. There's so many dedicated public school teachers that are out there trying so hard against this terrible socialist onslaught. Well, and then talking about an onslaught, a massive winter storm is now moving into the east. John Jessup has more about that.
And Pat, the powerful storm is hitting the entire eastern United States today and tomorrow. The winter weather was set to strike the central part of the country overnight with up to 8 inches of snow in some areas. It is the latest in a nonstop series of storms this winter.
I think it's too much. I think we could have less of this.
The storm now moving on to cities like Detroit, Chicago, and New York. It could bring up to 6 inches of snow to Baltimore and right here in Washington, with ice in parts of the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic and heavy rains farther south. Well, Houston's Second Baptist Church is responding to questions about its handling of sexual abuse cases. Monday, SBC President J.D. Greer included Second Baptist in a list of 10 churches for scrutiny and possible removal. This all stems from a series of reports by 2 Texas newspapers revealing that over the course of 2 decades, close to 400 Southern Baptist leaders faced allegations of sexual misconduct. 220 were convicted or took plea deals, leaving behind more than 700 victims. In a statement, Second Baptist Church said it takes allegations of sexual misconduct or abuse very seriously. The church also says of the 2 cases the Houston Chronicle reported, one man, a contractor, was let go as soon as the church learned of the allegations, and the second Pat was terminated almost a year before the sexual abuse actually took place.
You know, I want to say about that Second Baptist, this is a fantastic church with wonderful people. Ed Young is the former, I don't know if he's still the pastor or was. He's a leader in the Southern Baptist Convention. And to link that great church in the fact that the Houston Chronicle has made a few allegations over the years, some contracting firm that was let go. But you can't just be running those charges around. It isn't right to do that. But I'm shocked to hear that this sexual stuff is just terrible, and it's permeating all the churches. And now there's a Catholic Church which has got so much problem. They're talking about nuns that are molesting young people. They're talking about pedophile priests. They're talking about hiring prostitutes. They're talking about children to unmarried priests that they're trying to take care of. And well, John has more on what's happening in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, Pat, Pope Francis is convening a summit of Catholic leaders from around the world in Rome this week to address decades of sexual abuse scandals. As Amber Strong reports, the church is also bringing to light a policy that's been kept secret for years.
The cloud hanging over the Catholic Church is getting darker as a new report reveals the church produced secret documents to deal with children born to priests. In a statement, a Vatican spokesperson told the New York Times, "I can confirm these guidelines exist. It is an internal document." These sons and daughters, referred to as children of the ordained, have been usually kept out of the public eye.
When you're hidden, you are characterized by secrecy.
What does secrecy do to a child?
It eats away at their sense of worth.
As one of those hidden children, Vincent Doyle is now shedding light and helping those like himself. His website, Coping International, provides resources to some 50,000 users. This latest element is just a part of the sexual abuse scandal the church hopes to address with this upcoming meeting. The Protection of Minors in the Church Conference will bring together the Pope, bishops from around the world, and survivors.
I'm hopeful that the church will come out with direct actions that are going to keep children safer today and help survivors to heal.
Both abuse and its cover-up can no longer be tolerated.
The meeting comes on the heels of the pontiff's decision to defrock former Washington, D.C. Archbishop Theodore McCarrick. McCarrick is accused of abusing minors and seminary students for years.
The fact that this takes place on the eve of the historic summit is a depressing sign that it takes bad publicity and a tsunami of criticism before this Pope finally does the right thing.
In an attempt to pull back the curtain of secrecy, the church plans to stream parts of that conference on the web so the public can judge for itself. Amber Strong, CBN News in Washington.
Thanks, Amber. Well, an American woman who left Alabama to join ISIS now wants to return. Hoda Mathuna says she was radicalized online and went to Syria to marry an ISIS fighter. While there, she sent her own anti-American messages on social media like this one. Americans wake up, go on drive-bys and spill all of their blood. Veterans, patriots, Memorial Day, kill them. Now, with the caliphate nearly destroyed, she's trapped in a refugee camp with her 18-month-old child and says she regrets everything.
I thought it was obligatory upon me to go, and I went without thinking of the consequences, without thinking twice, really.
Asked if she should be held accountable for her actions, Mithuna suggested she could get therapy and is willing to speak out against radical Islam. If she is allowed to return home, she could face jail time. Pat?
My feeling is keep that woman out. I mean, let those people realize there are consequences. And what she did is not something you just have, quote, therapy about. It was horrible to join up with those people and watch the murder of her fellow citizens and to speak out for those bloodthirsty killers. It's outrageous. And I'm for forgiveness, but in that case, keep her out of this country. I mean, she has left the country. Keep her out. I mean, let everybody know that there's a penalty for joining a radical group like this and turning against your nation. And do not give her, quote, forgiveness. I'm all for forgiveness. That's the Christian thing. But in this case, there has to be a consequence to the actions of somebody. And she was old enough to know what she was doing. John?
Well, Pat, if anything positive comes out of Syria's civil war, it could be the new government formed in the northeast part of the country. It's based on equal rights and religious freedom. And as Chris Mitchell reports from right here in Washington, this new democracy could be short-lived if U.S. forces leave the area.
This new government runs from the Tigris to the Euphrates rivers.
We have a political system that was based on a social contract between all the groups, Arabs, Kurds, Syria Christians. In this social contract, they articulated how they want to live together as diverse ethnicities and diverse religions.
Bassam Ishaq is seeking support from U.S. leaders for this new government. He calls it a golden opportunity.
I don't think ever any political system in the Middle East guaranteed religious freedom. If you go back hundreds and thousands of years, this has not happened.
They also see a common bond.
Much of our aspiration actually is in line with the American Revolution. We don't want a country where citizenship and rights are based on ethnic identities or religious identity. We want all Syrians to be equal. We believe they were all created by God equal and to be free.
They also find inspiration in the Bible, where the prophet Isaiah wrote of a holy highway from Assyria, part of modern-day Syria, through Israel and Egypt.
This is actually our dream, is that the highway, that the crescent will be the Isaiah crescent, Lord willing, because it's a crescent of peace and prosperity. And according to Isaiah, when this Isaiah crescent is established, it will be a blessing for the whole earth. So we are really yearning for the Isaiah crescent.
Yet he says they need protection so this dream and democracy can stay alive. Ishaq says he wants to tell President Trump the existence of Christians there hangs in the balance given surrounding threats.
So I would say to him, Mr. President, God is entrusting you. God has entrusted America with power and ability. Please seek God, ask God before you make the decision, so that Christianity is not eradicated from Syria and from historical Mesopotamia.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Washington.
Pat, a promising move there with a government in northeast Syria and perhaps a model for the rest of the Middle East.
Let's hope so. I tell you, I hope our president will listen to some of this. Those Christians, believe me, will be slaughtered if the Turks take over, and they want to take over. Now, I've suggested that Kurdistan, which is a much larger group, there are 36 million Kurds. They have no country, and they want to establish a free democratic society. And there could be a Trump manifesto, just like the manifesto that declared a land for the Jews in the Holy Land. They can say, you know, it is our desire of our administration there be a homeland for the Kurdish people. 36 million. The only major ethnic group in the world that does not have its own homeland. and they're already established across northern Iraq, northern Syria, and it's a bigger group. But this Democratic Assembly there in northern Syria, it's a wonderful thing. But folks, if we pull out precipitantly from that area, there's going to be a bloodbath of epic proportions. The Christians will be eliminated, the Yazidis will be killed, and the Kurds will be slaughtered. I guarantee it'll happen. And the president needs to be aware of this. He's riding high in the polls. He's done a wonderful job. The speech was tremendous, etc. All he's got to do is issue a Trump manifesto. He doesn't have to do anything else. A Trump doctrine that says, I recognize a homeland for the Kurdish people. That's all he's got to do. The Kurds are already there. But they need American support. If the military from America pulls out, the Soviets move in, the Syrians under Bashar Assad move in, and the Iranians move in through the other part of Iraq. It'll be a bloodbath, and all those wonderful people will be slaughtered. Mr. President, please listen and write the White House, call the White House, call on the hotline. Say, we urge the president. He will listen if enough people get on the phone and call in the White House. And we cannot pull out of that thing. We just can't do it. And I'm all for bringing our troops home. Absolutely. We've been in too many wars in too many places, and I'm all for it. But in this case, all we've got to do is, nature abhors a vacuum. So if we pull out, there's a vacuum. We can, the Kurdish people already have a government. They've already got a country all set up. And their people, 36 million of them, are big enough to take charge of northern Iraq and northern Syria. That is the historic land of the Kurds. And this new democratic group, God bless them, incorporated. And that prophecy in Isaiah, Syria will be blessed by God, and Israel will be my people, and there'll be a highway between Syria and Egypt, and it will go through Israel, and there'll be a third in the nation. It's going to be wonderful. But whether that's a fulfillment of that, I don't know. But one thing we cannot have on our watch is a bloodbath. We will never be able to recover from it. It'll be a stain on our nation we cannot live through. We can't have it happen.